policies and the possibilities of application, and it could happen in different areas, but we need to know, understand the impacts, the positive and negative impacts. So later we're going to talk with the representative of two organizations that research on the impact of technology in society, but mainly they train citizens in the best use of technology. I will be the mediator with Marek, co-founder of Tactical Tech, and Joana Varon from Coding Rights. Now we're going to change and start to talk in English so that we can talk with them.
So we are pleased to welcome our guest to this panel, Joana Varon. She's a self-taught and cyber feminist geek with an academic background in law, international relations, and development studies. She was one of the researchers who started the working group on the human rights considerations for standards and protocols at the Internet Engineering Task Force, IETF. She is founding director and creative chaos catalyst at the Coding Rights Brazil, affiliated with the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. She was also a Human Rights and Technology Fellow at the Carr Center for Human Rights Policy at the Harvard Kennedy School. Marek Tuszynski. Marek is a creative director and co-founder of Tactical Tech. Produces creative and social interventions that span multiple media, from film and radio to television, books, exhibitions, and of course the web. For the past 25 years, he has worked on the nexus of technology and politics, information and activism, and the consequences of living in a quantified society. Marek's latest documentary series for the Technical Tech, Exposing the Invisible, explores the digital tools tactics that now allow evidence-based activism to thrive on an unprecedented scale. Marek is also co-founder of creative agency Technical Studios, co-curator of exhibition The Glass Room. Each person invited will have 15 minutes to make an initial presentation. Then we'll come back to the live debate with your participation. So let's start. I'll pass on the word to Marek. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marek. I'm the co-founder and creative director of Tactical Tech. And Tactical Tech is an international non-for-profit organization that is focusing on impact of technology on society. And we do different kinds of things. So we've been around for 20 years practically. I co-founded the organization in 2003. And we're running, since then, we've had hundreds of different projects, different approaches. And at the beginning, I just want to make sure that it's very clear that our principles are and has been always the same. So we work with open knowledge, with open source, with Creative Commons, with the most possible open licenses, and so on, etc. So the kind of underlying principles of openness, sharing, and so on, has been present at our work from the early beginning. I will share a screen with you to just give you a good sense of what we're working on, who we are, and give you an overview of number of projects that we've been working recently. I'm not going to give you history of Tactical Tech for the last 20 years. Don't worry about that. So Tactical Tech practically is a group of 25 people that are working on specifically two different areas of work. I'm just showing you an overview of our website, if you like. But the major principle behind it, major kind of idea of what we're trying to do, is to contribute to building a sustainable digital future. We're living in a data society that is unequal. It is dominated by large players that are able to control the flow of data, information, and so forth, also narratives, including the very important narrative that is the political narrative that we're living in globally and also in the context of different countries. And our work is dedicated to these two kind of ways of how we want to address who and how is building a sustainable digital future. On one hand, we have a series of activities that are addressing general public. And I have to show you my face for a second, so it's not only looking at the slides. And this work is mainly addressing general public. So we try to create interventions, exhibitions, content and output that is as widely accessible as possible. What it means that we create exhibitions, interventions, we create frameworks for workshops, methodologies, and other things that enable us, but also our partners, contributors, and the audiences we're working with to be able to discuss the digital, the living in the quantified society, the politics of data, the impact of technology on environment and on our lives in the way that is most comfortable for them, in the way that is easy to engage with, and in the way that is also tangible. The work that we do around technology, information, it's very difficult because technology and information through technology is very elusive. It's very difficult to pinpoint. And if you do, then you are kind of struggling with vocabulary. Talking about technologies often requires technical language, but also for many people, sadly, but it is a fairly boring subject matter. So one of the examples that I'm going to tell you about is a project called the Glassroom. Glassroom is a many different kinds of things. On one hand, it is a large-scale exhibition where we culture jam the corporate language of how to engage people with topics that some of the audiences don't want to engage because they feel they are not about them, they feel indifferent, they feel neutral, and they believe that market regulates, technology and its politics, so there's nothing really for them there. We create these spaces that are hijacking the corporate language, pretend to be something else, in which people can gather and experience how technology works, why we are as individuals depending on technology, but also who are the gatekeepers, who are the big actors there, who are harvesting something that is, for us, the users, invisible. That is the data, and not only personal data, but any kind of data. The ability to big technology in the US and China and other places to capture largest, probably in the history of the world, amounts of data is unprecedented, but also at scale that we can't even comprehend. And it's much more data actually being captured that in any way is processed or used, but there are only a few actors who have all this data in their data centers and so on. So what we try to do is kind of picture this way of doing the exhibition in these different kinds of narratives of showing what the narratives are popular, how technology is presented to us. We enable people through artist work to engage with how technology works, what are the different ways of understanding the impact of technology, but also look at the normalization of how we think about data, information, and technology in the first place. So the classroom is the multiple formats, as I said. What you see on some of the slides, it also is a paper version of it. We have had in last 2 years, let me just scroll down here, we have had over 471 by now, events that are smaller versions of the larger exhibition in 61 countries that attracted 352,000 visitors. That's pretty impressive, I would say, shamelessly. But it is very important that we would never be able to do that on our own. This is possible thanks to the large network of libraries, schools, community centers, art centers, institutions, organizations, individuals, informal groups that are taking our content, adapting it, and changing to what is required, to how they know much better than us, the audience they deal with, want to talk about technology, what is the most relevant, how it works, and so on. We also take this content and try to address audiences that we think are critical when we talk about technology, environment, politics. What the Future wants is the project that we co-designing and co-developing with young people through a series of workshops, which is taking, in a way, the content from the classroom, from our experience, our partners' experience, and trying to find a vocabulary and language that young people are interested in. Not only in terms of explaining how technology works, but also what they want technology to be useful for, what they believe technology is necessary for, and how it works for them. They are the natives. We are not. So that is the kind of a way of engaging the largest possible audiences we can. We don't want the audiences to walk away with either confusion or concern. We don't want people to panic about things. Technology is here to stay. We're depending on technology. There is really no way out. There's no place without technology. We can say that there are places where people don't have access to technology. They have no mobile phones, no internet, all these kind of things. But the technology there is already present. There are already actors that are harvesting different forms of data, collecting information or influence people, and they have tools, and technology is present through health system, education system, or comes through satellites from the sky, and it's deciding for groups of people what's relevant to them from a distance. And we don't want people to walk away with nothing. So the project that we created, I just have this Portuguese version here, the data detox kit. It is a kit that is trying to give a very basic tools, kind of hands-on materials for people to be able to address the primary simple concerns they have about technology that they have in their hand or access to. And the way we go about it is to show how technology works by experiencing it, seeing it for yourself, and making some brave first steps in going into, for example, settings and seeing how the settings are influencing the way the technology works for us, or maybe not only for us. And are we happy about that or not happy? Can we change something? If so, how to change it? And that gives a lot of people the first hand on kind of not going with what is the default, the devil is in the default, if you like. So we try to change that attitude. Recently, let me just show you my face again. I was asked to do that. Recently, we've been also looking at technology and the relationship between technology and our understanding of crisis. We live in a very complicated times, and wherever you live, it doesn't matter. We all have a very good sense and understanding that we're living in a fairly difficult, exceptional times under global and local forms of crisis. And what we were interested in exploring the relationship between technology and crisis was how technology, the use of technology, the design of technology, is impacting our understanding of crisis. And let's focus on environmental and pandemic, the two that we are also aware of these days. And the other ones like conflict that are coming out of them. For us, it was important to see that there's a relationship between how technology is conditioning not only the way we react to crisis, the way we imagine solutions to crisis, but also it is conditioning what we consider to be a crisis, how we define crisis, how we problematize it, and so on, etc. So for that purpose, we created an exhibition that you may like to know about, and that is an exhibition about technology and crisis. And it's called Everything Will Be Fine. It is a public intervention. It's like at the beginning, the glass room was a big exhibition. This one is an outdoor installation, like on the picture on the right on the top, which is very basic. It is a beautiful object made by architects that we collaborated with, but the exhibition is very simple. For us, however, the content of the exhibition, the narrative, the way we frame how we propose to think about technology is the crucial part. And that, again, like with the glass room, is going to be taken to our partners, contributors, and collaborators, unpack, repack, and reformat. And it's going to be traveling again and reach as wide as possible audiences, as many possible languages. The data detox I showed you seconds ago, it's translated to over 30 languages by now, and the Brazilian Portuguese is also coming up as we speak. This is very important, the everything will be fine for us, because it is proposing a kind of more inclusive way of talking and engaging the audience with the discourse about technology. We divided into 4 narratives: digital panic, digital care, digital doubt, and digital hope. Because we see that through these 4 ways of seeing technology, we either accept it or build our hopes or fears, because for one hope, for the other person may become a fear. How we see what we can do in this complicated and complex world. And we see how product makers, technologists are promoting technology, how they fight to deploy technology to solve the problems, address them, and so on, etc. We also complexify by saying that technology designed for one thing can be used for many different things, for the good and for the bad. And we try to build that understanding in the kind of audience's consciousness of how we choose technologies. It's not enough to choose them on the principles. It's not enough to say that technology is good because it's open source, open knowledge, and Creative Commons. Those are essential principles, and we always going to stand behind them. But they don't constitute yet what is important and what is not. What have any chances to be effective? It is not about efficacy. It is determining if we can trust or not this technology, can we check it or not, but it doesn't make it universally good. And this is where we come with more critical thinking about how we should be thinking about technology. So this is one of the way we work with technology. And a small project that we also did very recently was looking at all the technologies that came out in regards to the pandemic. It's an online project called Technologies of Hope and Fear, where we have had a database of over 300 some solutions to pandemic. And again, we propose a different way of thinking about them, not from the point of view of the technology, is it a drone or is it tracing app and so on, etc., but rather what kind of intelligence, what kind of data harvesting and gathering is happening through each and every of these technologies, because they promise one thing: to save something, to do something, like protect you from getting the virus, or make sure that the space is safe for you to work or learn, and so on, etc. But they all based on one principle, that trying to control the virus, we design technologies to control humans, ourselves, the hosts, and so on. So just very shortly, we were looking at 4 types of intelligence that is gathered. Instead of talking about data, we think it's important to talk about intelligence because it's gathered by only a specific number of players. Ambient intelligence, that is about large-scale data set that is not even individualized and personalized. We talk about the biometric intelligence from all the trackers that are attached to our bodies and so on, etc. We talk about mobility intelligence, as well as behavioral intelligence. And behavioral is about influencing our behaviors, making us do things in different ways. And the crisis of pandemic is a very important case study to see how exceptional time is enabling certain technologies and approaches and data collection and analysis and results to be normalized. In non-exceptional times, that would be much harder. That's a kind of one part of our work that is looking at the consequences of living in quantify and datify society. The other part of our work that is not addressing wide audiences, as we do with the exhibitions and interventions, is focused on the work with specialists, with organizations that are more technology inclined. They have a better understanding of importance of technology and its politics and so on. And here's a few projects I want to share with you very quickly. The Influence Industry project is looking at who are the actors, how many of them they are there, and what they do, where data and technology is being used to influence not only our views and behaviors in terms of politics, but also how we think about politics, who we trust, who we don't trust, and how that can be done. The team here did a very thorough investigation. And again, we have a database of over 500 companies that are very similar to, Cambridge Analytica that almost everybody knows about. But it's much more of them present. They're engaging in different countries, in different places, in using data, different kinds of data, to build different profiles of constituencies and different forms of influencing. And we analyze their methodologies. We look at the way they work. We work with the partners. We've written a series of reports about, in specific cases of political situations, voting processes, elections, and so on, which of them were present, what services they offer, who was buying their services, and then experts and researchers can correlate that with what have actually happened on the ground, who won the elections, and how much money were spent, and so on, etc. That's kind of very important project for us. And the same kind of methodology that we offer to the specialist groups, we also try to codify and make it more available to citizens, individuals and groups that are trying to investigate difficult cases, problematic cases, or things that they care about, from environmental to social, cultural, and political. And Exposing the Invisible is such a project where we are collecting different kinds of activities, different kinds of ways of working with data, information, and investigation. And Exposing the Invisible is divided into the kit, where you can learn how to investigate, you can learn what to investigate, and you can also learn about different aspects of how to go about it safely and with more efficacy, how to also tell stories based on investigations. And we also have, of course, materials that are ready for people to use for trainings, design their own workshops and teach each other and learn about data, investigation, information, and technology. So this is, in short, the tactical tech work that we currently do, engaging the general public through exhibitions, engagements, and giving basic tools for people to figure out why technology is important and what we can all do with it and about it. And we also specialize in doing different forms of investigation, quantifying, datifying investigations, trying to show that there's plenty of space in the quantified society for each and every one of us to make our point, to bring our narrative to the fora, and to question the way the current environment of how technology is designed is being formed and propose alternatives. So that will be all I wanted to tell you today, and I'm looking forward to the debate, discussion, questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marek. Let's hear from Joana now.
Ótimo. Tem sido muito difícil se focar em estar aqui.
Pleasure to be here. Coda is a very important event. I've been in many Coda's editions, and the last one was super special and really marked my life because it was previous to FOSPA, which is the Fórum Social Pan-Amazônico Social Forum that happened in Belém do Pará, and Coda happened right before. With this new president that we are going to have, I'm so happy to envision that all the people that were there in Coda, a lot of indigenous movements, a lot of land defenders, a lot of quilombolas, we'll have more space. We all are going to have space to intervene, to negotiate, to dialogue, to bring our demands to the now gov.br. So I think that hope that we are feeling today positions even the mandate for Coda, the network of the Coda.Br events that participate in Coda.Br events in new positions for us to analyze data, to bring the narratives, and to push for political changes. So this is very exciting. Let's see how it all unfolds. But the feeling that we are recovering spaces for democratic debate, it's very important, not only for Brazil, but for the world, because of the role that Brazil historically has had in the previous governments on the environmental debate, but also in the social justice debate. So I'm very happy to be here speaking to you in this new context that's less depressive, I hope. We still will have a lot to fight for the democracy to uphold, because we know that people are already blocking streets and doing crazy stuff. Our current president is under the bed crying and probably plotting, so we need to be aware and cautious, also looking on data about that. So I'm going to talk about coding rights a little bit as well. Coding rights, we have two fronts, and that's also why I brought this Brazilian context. One of our fronts is the resistance front, producing research to expose the power dimensions that are behind technology, behind the implementation and development of certain technologies. And the other front is about envisioning alternatives, dreaming about different futures. And being able to dream, being able to have the time to envision alternatives, sometimes is also a privilege. You need to have time for that. If we are just resisting, we cannot dream. So trying to have that equilibrium for us is very important. And I think this shift in the political scenario will also give us more space to dream together and to envision alternatives. But the resistance will continue to play a role. Coding Rights is a feminist organization. By feminist, I mean we try to fight oppressions in all layers, intersectional vision of oppression of gender, of class, of race, of sexual expression. So we bring that when we think about what research we are going to do, and the research we do inspires advocacy strategies, inspires workshops that we do, and also more artistic, creative projects. So I'm gonna also share my screen and give you some examples of resistance and research on technology applied for resistance. The latest thing that we have been involved, of course, has been the elections. And just a second, choosing the screen. The elections. So as Marek posed, there is the influencers industry. Coding Rights has also collaborated with Tactical Tech in many occasions. One of them was about elections, and it was back in 2018 when we were looking at WhatsApp. And before it was like there was already a scenario pointing that that was going to be the main channel for disinformation back in the previous Bolsonaro campaign. But for these elections, we have been looking and question my screen is frozen. Sorry.
Because we're having some technical difficulties. Let's see if Joanna comes back. So while Joanna comes back, just letting everybody know that those who participate in Coda.Br in person, in the person event, will be able to check out the Glassroom exhibition that Marek presented from Technical Tech. And yeah, everybody who's following us can send questions on the YouTube chat. So yeah, while Joanna doesn't come back, yeah, let's continue, me and you, Marek. So yeah, I guess the one of the reoccurring themes has definitely been the elections, right? At Digital Democracy, we work a lot with mostly indigenous communities and trying to give workshops, especially to communities like that have very low tech literacy. It's very hard to explain. Oh, it seems Joanna is back. Let's continue with her.
Should I continue or just we get into a conversation? I don't know.
Please continue. Please continue. Yeah, finish.
My computer collapsed when I started to share screen because it was full of tabs of all the work we have been doing in the election. So it's like my head now it collapsed. But I was saying that I'm not gonna share a screen then. But I was talking about elections and the roles of influencers industry, the role of intermediaries, and currently, like analyzing what was happening in Brazil. I just published an article last week on Friday, I guess, in Folha de São Paulo, that was exactly questioning the way internet platforms were acting in the lack of content moderation vis-a-vis our laws, but also their own policies in terms of references. We are also watching this now happening with content that is against the integrity, civic integrity in the terms of their platforms. So I think there is a lot for us to discuss, to question in this position that we are now in which we have monopolist companies posing a methodology and a view of technology, and they have one view that comes, most of them comes from the Silicon Valley, are being developed by white male from rich countries, and those are the same platforms that are imposing to us what is the format of communication, how are we communicating more with video, with photo, with text, and they put the trends, their algorithms role what should be up or down in the priority, and it's a monopoly, so we don't have like choice. And during these elections we could see a lot the power that upholds our Supreme Electoral Court had to put a resolution to pressure them to remove them harmful content to the election's integrity. But now I just see that they just sit in comfort to wait for the court orders and are not even properly implemented their own policies, that the ones that they told us would be implemented and were developed according to the Capitolio episode. So there is a lot of research to be done on that, on removal, on how the notifications that the announcements that we do in the platforms are obeyed or not. They are gonna publish some reports. We need to push for more transparency on that. And I think, because this, see how the our regulation is responding to those platforms. Coding Rights has been involved in gender-based violence that also occur in the digital environments. And for us who has been studying gender violence and the role of platforms, it was clearly that was never enough what they were doing. And then COVID came, the pandemic came, Trump came, the US elections came, and their role in content moderation changed a bit. So we need to be continuously like putting them in pressure for that and questioning that those monopolies and developing alternative tools. So and that is where I think the imaginative part comes. In Coding Rights, we have 2 projects that are more like on speculative futures. The Oracle for Transfeminist Technologies, which is like a tarot deck. It's a card game with transfeminist values that we use to envision technologies that are developed by those that currently are not in the power positions for doing that. And I think by doing exercise of speculative futures, we can get our heads out of the box in the vision of technology that Silicon Valley imposes to us, to reclaim ancestral values, ancestral knowledges, our culture to have those things inspiring the technologies that we want. Another project that we have is Mami, the musea, musea that from the future that also plays with the idea what's the future when patriarchy has fallen. And so we use art and the pieces of feminist resistance from today that are now exposed in the museum for the future. And it's a way to expose all the patriarchal violences of a capitalist system, racist, lesbophobic, transphobic, but through feminist art. And I don't know how much time I have, Luandro, but just to end. So we have strategies of resistance. I focused a little bit more on that, on the role of internet platforms and content moderations vis-a-vis gender violence, elections integrity, and the idea that we need to target those monopolies because also they are gonna get bigger and bigger. They grew and got a lot of money from the pandemic's context, the digitalization. They are getting a lot of money now with the elections, with ads, illegal ads that were not removed even, and also with climate change. Internet platforms pose that discourse of we are going to save democracies, and look what happened. And now they are bringing the discourse, we are going to save the world from climate change. Elon Musk with his jets and all these techno-solutionist things. And we know that's not going to happen. It's going to be another disaster. But they can earn even more money posing those techno-solutionist alternatives. But if you think about Elon Musk, Tesla cars, how much lithium is needed for an electronic car? Where does this lithium come from? It's from our territories, no? It's from the minings in Chile, in Bolivia, in Argentina. It's indigenous land. So how green are those Tesla cars? How green are those techno solutions? So yeah, I think I'm going to stop here. I didn't prepare a lot and I've been talking out of my head. I hope it's helpful. I've been just bringing some topics of research maybe that might be of interest of people that are involved in Coda and are interested in Coda to think about the power of technologies and to try to hold monopolies accountable and break monopolies even. Thank you.
Thank you, Joana. That was a great presentation. Yes, so to continue with our panel, as I was saying right before Joana came back, in our work in digital democracy, working with people, especially indigenous peoples who have very low digital literacy, it's very hard to convey the idea of what are the dangers, right? We start with the question of, what's up? It's great, right? They keep your data, then if you lose your phone, your data is still there. But then with the 2019 election, I think that was the great example of how dangerous the technology and the monopoly we have can be. So yeah, that has been, the what I feel the two of you have a lot in common. This investigation of how the elections in democracy has been affected by technology, and yeah, it's kind of frightening how locked in we are to these technologies, right? Now you're talking about Musk, and now even Twitter belongs to Musk, so we're locked into these huge platforms owned by these Western, white male guys with these crazy plans of destroying the planet and going to Mars. Is that what we want? So yeah, to continue the panel a bit, I'd love to hear. Joana talked a lot about the dreaming. So I'd love to hear from you guys how you envision uh, a future where we get unlocked from these platforms, um, from this monopoly, right? Because even in the workshops I give, normally people understand the risks, but what are they going to do, right? They're locked in. There's the critical mass, nobody uses anything else than WhatsApp. It's convenient. So what is the way forward? Let's start with Joana for this. How do you envision this moving forward? I think popular education has a big role to play in educating people. And like you said, right, the technology is not the solution. I think the technology is very small part of the solution. So yeah, Joana.
Easy question. So yes, what we have been doing, it's training, and the trainings are not like digital security trainings only, like focus on how to protect yourself, but also focusing on broadening the critical vision of the technical politics behind technologies, and for that we need data and proper narratives. I think that one of the mistakes of the so-called digital rights movement was to call themselves ourselves, so I'm kind of part of it, digital rights, because it's not digital rights, it's rights. We are talking about human rights. We are talking about not being racist, not promoting racism. We are talking a bit about not promoting lesbophobia, transphobia through technologies. We are talking about gender equality. It's just that technology adds another layer, but the basis for criticism and also for thinking about alternatives is in the traditional human rights movement literacy and thinking, no? For instance, when we are going to talk about facial recognition, Coding Rights works a lot on facial recognition and how it's biased on transgender faces, on faces of women, Black women mostly. So I think that the approach, the more successful approach is to not say, oh, this is a digital right or privacy or surveillance debate. No, it's a debate about, it's an anti-racist debate. No, it's a social justice debate. And then by doing that, you reposition the debate into a point in which all the social justice and all the anti-racist, the anti-prison movement can engage in the debate and bring all the knowledge on advocacy, on theory, and understand that. So you can have Angela Davis talking about facial recognition without having knowledge about artificial intelligence. So this is one thing, I think, to make the narratives more understandable. No? And then then we need to start building the opposite visions, and that is more challenging. No? We are also, I think, Marek and I also part of the open source movement, digital security movement, with a lot of free software that were created, but then because it's not embedded in the capitalist system, it's hard to maintain. It's based on community, but can we do that? Can we think that scaling is not should not always be the main goal, and maybe we have things that are more modular to every context, but they can be interoperable. So if it's more connected to one context, it's easier to have a community feeling it. I don't know. And then there is the issue on investing on education, on coding, on science and technology. That's something that also Brazil lost in the last years of these governments, because before we have a very vivid free software movement that was inspired and by when Gilberto Gil was the Minister of Culture. We have a free software movement that was like glowing, and that lost space. So investment on that also, it's something for us to build on alternatives. I'm gonna stop. I've been talking a lot.
Thank you. Would you like to comment, Marek?
Thanks. It's always hard to come after Joanna and the ideas she's sharing, but I try my best. Then I would focus on different things. Maybe that may be useful, I guess. So the question was, what we can do. That depends, who you are, where you are, and at what scale you can operate. You can't really answer this question generally, that we should educate everybody or we should give all the data for free and so on, etc. Because in some places it would work, in some won't, and in some that would be absolute disaster if you do these things. You can, frog leap steps that you have to do either, one way or another way, and so on. I would say that I think it's also when you talk about movements, the digital rights or open source movement, it's important to understand that the debate and perception move on, and we have to also rethink how we think, people who were looking at technology for the last 10, 15, 20 or more years, and how it's developed. It didn't start from where it is right now. And in a way, you can say that open source won the game, in that sense that technically speaking, it's present everywhere. Most of the funds are running on open source, internet is running open source, and so on, etc. It didn't win politically. And now we have a situation that the big corporation, and there's no fight even with open source anymore. It's a kind of symbiosis. It's actually mutually beneficial if you look where the code is coming from and so on. I don't want to go too technical. But I think the principal focus is, what did we learn from that, from good and bad, and how we can transfer to the other problem that Joanna was talking about, which I don't call monopolies, they're more hegemonies. But again, this is kind of linguistic. Big companies, not only Silicon Valley, but also Chinese companies that are almost equally big, and they're not coming from Silicon Valley. They don't coming from any cybernetic philosophy behind it, etc. They come from pure business and control perspective, and they kind of duplicate the models that were developed and tested first by Silicon Valley companies. I think that the principal focus there is on knowledge, and I'm mentioning knowledge because it's an open knowledge foundation and so on. That what they really focusing on, big businesses that make money, they make money on the entire spectrum of creating, collecting, storing, processing, analyzing, and then utilizing intelligence. And I use word intelligence because I don't want to use word data. It's a really boring word, and only kind of makes you think about the spreadsheet if you think about data. And intelligence is already kind of interesting because it comes with the promotion of ideas about artificial intelligence, but also it is about intelligence used by services that specialize in knowing better about things than other people do. And I think that's what characterizes a specific type of, how you gain hegemony in a business sense when you own all the channels through which information is flowing. You own the channels where the information is harvested from, all the devices we're carrying on, external, internal, sensors and so on, etc. You absolutely control the cloud, which is where information sits, and you have all the capacity and infrastructure to hold to as much data as you want, though you may not even be able to analyze it or do anything useful like Facebook and so on, or Meta, but you have it. And then you can monetize it as much as you want through ways as you want right now, and it brings a lot of money. But this accumulation is extremely problematic when you have so much knowledge that you can extract from evidence, information, data, and so on, intelligence, and that is unprecedented and at a much bigger scale. And so I think for me, when you think about what to do, is to first of all realize that this is the environment we're living in, and we're living also in a very complex kind of, I would say, multiple crisis situation. Like there are not single, twin crises, etc. It's like whenever you don't look, like it's basically crises everywhere: environment, politics, democracy, and then what it's also bringing, like migration, and the fact that we are kind of witnessing that most of the place called Earth is unlivable, and there's also plenty of other, equally important local and specific to specific groups that's been for years marginalized and so on, etc. So if you look at that from this perspective, and you kind of look at these two factors here, who has all this overview of what's going on from any angle you can imagine, from any perspective, from satellites through body sensors and so on, etc., and the scale of responsibility, that makes me think that we need more than just education. We need more than just policy making, because those are very important things, but they require a lot of time, a lot of effort, and A, we don't really have that time, and B, these companies and these businesses with their politics are moving much faster. So we need to think about faster ways of demystifying what is the actual business behind what they do. Maybe focus on multiple things. Whenever you can focus on the local issues, then that's where the education is. You make this kind of more relevant to whoever is about to use or using technology. Even if technology is not present there in your hand, the technology is present there through other means, through medical services, through aid services, through other kinds of things that it is not used by people. And then we also have to think about it globally. We have to think about movements that are bigger than local and regional, because the problems we're facing manifest themselves locally, heavily, and they have to be addressed there. But they are global. And if somebody doesn't feel them, doesn't see them, doesn't experience them yet, it's just a matter of short time that we all will be exposed to all of them. And I think this combination between understanding the planetary problem with the crisis of democracy, I'm happy for Brazil right now. It's a good day. I checked the message this morning, etc. But how long it's going to last? What how good the government is going to be, and so on and so on. How intertwined it is in other forces and so on. So not to take the fun from today. It's getting complicated everywhere we look, and it's very hard to do the work that we do, because the technology that we're looking at, if you like it or not, it's also empowering people at the same time. It opens new ways of doing businesses, learning, communicating, etc. And it comes with very little initial cost. I mean, the cost is somewhere there, but it's not really tangible, in a sense, like it's very hard to identify the risks and so on. So we kind of in this interesting time. But I would say let's learn something from the open source movement. Let's not make the mistakes and win the game also politically this time, not just technically, if you like. And let's think about new constellations of activism that will bring different kinds of groups that are active in different spaces, but their understanding of technology is very different. And they also have much more hope related to technological solutions. We can be skeptical about it. We can, and we've written about it a lot, and we show how problematic techno-solutionism is. On the other hand, we're going really far with problems, and we will have to use technology because that's the one thing we have actually created and have is working right now. And I'm not techno-optimist, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a very complicated world right now.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. So one of what the being part of the community networks kind of environment in Brazil, one of the works we did last year, one of the most interesting was with Intervozes and with the Guarani people. And normally we work giving accessibility to connectivity, getting people more connected and making the internet more accessible. but we did something that was very different. The Guarani actually wanted us to block the internet because it was affecting their lives so much. And that was one of the most fascinating things I did last year, which brings me to Technical Tech has a chapter of the data detox kit, which is for the youth. And so, yeah, ask Marek, why is it so important to focus on that specific group, young people or tech natives, as we call them, and what has been the impact of that so far?
Maybe I unmute myself first. I think this is actually very fascinating. It's a new work we've been doing for the last 2 years, and mostly was research and collaboration. So we were working with different groups, initially mostly from Europe. And when we talk about young people, is a specific group between, I would say, 10, 11 and 16, 17 maximum. And different countries is, young people, are even in their 40s. But we focus on that specific range because in many places, people of that age own their own personal devices for the first time, and they define themselves to these devices against the parents, the school authorities and friends and so on, etc. And we were on one hand, of course, we wanted to be able to talk to them about the politics of technology and dangers and all these kind of things that we know a lot about. But we also wanted to run this project that is more collaborative and co-designing, in a sense that we wanted to learn what do they really think, what do they personally find exciting, fascinating about it, how do they use it, what kind of risk they see, how they see big corporations, who they are, who is there, do they see themselves as natives, what they want from adults, what they want adults to know about technology, and so on, etc. And that's been super fascinating journey that basically they trash all our content and redesign it and decided that some things are better than others, and they propose their own content, and we're still testing that work, but it's crucial. And in this work, our work is hardly ever, it's not like coding rights, speculative coding rights, and Joana does more speculative works. It's just kind of future scenarios. In our core work, we don't do that because not because we don't like it. We love speculation. It's just because there's so much that we have that we don't need to speculate about, that other people are better at that. But with young people, we decided to go with different forms of speculation, how they envision future and of themselves, because we thought that they can talk about future. Honestly, I'm too old for talking about future. Like, my future is too short. I'm gonna be gone before future starts. And if you talk about 20 years and 12 and 13, they actually talk about future. And so we also did a lot of research about historical materials, how kids in different places were talking about future in the 70s and 60s and 80s and so on. It's fascinating. It's always related to technology, novelty, and this kind of new forms of information. And it's not that different from current times, I would say. But I think kids right now are also much more aware because of the access to much wider access to information than I had. For example, to what's going on in the world, what the actual future may be like for them, and they don't like it. For me, future was exciting because I could not imagine it could be better than I was. It's like even the bad stuff there that I have no access to was great, and they very different. So we're still working on this part of the work. We have kind of new members of the team, and we're starting a new set of again kind of. The exhibitions in this is not like the Glasgow we're gonna see at Coda. It's more because it's kind of an exhibition that what you're gonna see. It's like posters and videos and stuff. With young people, what we do is we kind of more create like a workshop lab space where there are some components and elements that are already been co-created with other young people, and they enter this space and they build their own kind of a narratives, and it may become an exhibition if they like to, but it doesn't have to if they don't like to. If they prefer to use other methods and tools that we're looking forward into experimenting with that as well. This is kind of more taking a step farther adaptability that we normally do, coming from Creative Commons.
All right, thank you, Marek. Joana, would you like to comment?
Sure, I think I have two comments. Marek, we have been using the digital inquiry kit by Tactical Tech, but even though the model on kids is not available still in Portuguese, we did 2 workshops focused on educators and families. It was not the kids and adolescents. And it was very interesting, all the uneasiness that all the parents and educators have exactly on that point on what do we do with kids and adolescents and social media and technologies. And the workshops were fascinating because in the end it turns into open debates, with people that were very concerned about it. And I think that is also a need to make close the gap for those debates, including the kids, of course, so there is a better understanding on what they want and how they see the technologies. But on the other hand, we also saw that there is a lack of debates in the schools, at least here in Brazil, in most parts of Brazil, on technical political analysis of the tools that we have in one hand, on the other hand, on courses that are focused on coding as another language that you should learn in the school just as English, on how you assemble technologies work like a Lego as well. So how do you open black boxes so kids are also entitled to create other things? I think education for us to leave this situation in which we are locked into few huge platforms. We need to have those alternatives, that are created in the own terms of a community. So Luandro was talking about the Guarani and the internet. I think people that are working on community networks in Brazil, particularly with indigenous people, with Quilombola people, have a lot of experiences to tell about the terms and policies that people within the community are building for the usage of that collective network, either what time of the day it's gonna be up or down, and they turn out the generators at night, so people are also not like going crazy in the internet. So there are like initiatives there, like building other visions. And I think the task now is to empower those visions and to say, look, we are following one vision of technology, and this is from those guys that are empowering far-right movements in a lot of countries around the globe, and guys that are destroying environment, destroying territories. So I think it's a long path to take, to have this change, but it starts with the kids, educating and empowering kids to build other tech as well. And coding rights has its name because it's coding. I believe that our rights can be forced by coding in the law, but also coding in programming. And I think those things need to come together.
Thank you. Thank you, Joana. Thank you, Marek. You both. I think we have time for one question, one commentary from who's watching. So Fernanda asks, still around the topic of education, how can we have an education to discern information from disinformation? It's kind of still on the similar line what we're talking about. Let's start. Joana, you want to start?
Sure. It's complicated, no? Because I think it's important to have media literacy, to have workshops about disinformation, misinformation, but also adding the layer on the technopolitics behind misinformation. No? And if we consider that, one key issue is that the misinformation is gonna not always, but the way the structure works now with social media, misinformation is gonna be spreaded much more than any fact checking or piece that's gonna desmentir, is gonna correct the misinformation that was spread before, because social media platforms reward content that's more polemic. That goes for violent content, for misinformation content, for sexist content, LGBT phobic, racist. So all those contents got like bigger views because they are polemic, and then even people that are against the misinformation or the hate that's being spreaded, in order to denounce what's happening, ended up engaging with that and giving it even more visibility. So I think media literacy is one part of the conversation, but also we need to talk about how those platforms are earning a lot of money on algorithms that actually are built to spread hate and misinformation, and that's proven. There was this episode in which Frances Haugen, whistleblower, that's former worker from Facebook, released some reports from the company in which she could prove that Facebook or Meta was aware that Instagram was causing damage in the mental health, particularly of teenagers, particularly of young women, because it was promoting content that were like imposing a particular sense of beauty and so on and so forth. But they choose not to change the algorithm, and they prioritize profit. So we need to tackle that. We need to better understand how those algorithms are promoting. We already understand, but we need to have more evidence to try to push those platforms to change this, the way how they are promoting content as well, I think. But Marek sure have more views on that. It's a tricky question.
I can address it quickly. I think actually, explaining misinformation is not difficult. Your kids, it takes few minutes, and then they know. But that's not the problem. That's just a symptom of much larger problem, and that's what Joanna is talking about. And I think, for me, getting to a group of people, if you talk about education, to go through the process of understanding all the context, because for me, misinformation is part of our dependency on technology. So we are more and more dependent. We can basically do everything through, like we do this, meeting right now, through technology and so on, etc. And that's the major means of communication, participation, and you name it, organizing and being, working, studying, or whatever, and so on, etc. So it depends on these technologies, and they thrive because of the business model that Joanna is talking about. Is confusion is good, and polarization is good. Because that makes people communicating more, expressing more, participating more. It doesn't matter if it's good or not. I mean, let's forget about it, right? It's like, from the perspective of a business model, you need people doing stuff on these devices. If they stop doing stuff on these devices, you don't have any business. So confused and polarized environment is better than, decentralized, clear and organized environment, etc., which a lot of open source would advocate for. And what it is enabling influencing. So it is enabling something that we also try to expose to people, that it's not neutral. This kind of negative ambiguity in sense of confusion and polarization enables persuasion. And persuasion can be just, business-like, buy these shoes, not that shoes, or whatever, because this influencer is wearing them, and or it may be very political. And it's also important to not only focus on these visible aspects of, oh, I see this and it's not true, was produced by that, so there are bad people and so on, etc. Because a lot of this stuff that I see or you see doesn't matter. Persuasion and kind of a manipulation of people's feelings, especially about politics, operates on a statistical level. Our individual reactions are not that important. The difference between Lula and Bolsonaro is maybe 2%, 1%, and so on. So you're fighting for edgy margins and so on, etc. And the same with selling, because they scale. Somebody becomes president, somebody doesn't. Somebody sells more of this goods, not the other goods, and so on, etc. So I think politicizing that and explaining in a way very simple business models behind it, and what is good for them to thrive, all these debates and so on, etc., that polarize people, I think is also, that's what Joana was talking, this intergenerational conversation between elderly using technology, or in your case, also people on different levels of understanding technology, but understanding other things from the history, from the past. And it can be long past, in terms of indigenous, maybe short past from, into different generations, is very important, because the politics don't change. The need for influencing and holding to power is not new. It didn't change. We're not living in a global democratic society. We never did. And we may not for a very long time. We're only fighting for the pockets where that is possible. And I think technology can also enable that. So I don't want to I think that's enough for now. It's not going to confuse myself.
Can I add one little thing? Is that we also cannot just think that if people know what misinformation is, then they wouldn't spread it, because it's actually, for part of the people, is the opposite. In Brazil, we just had more than 49% of the Brazilians voted for Bolsonaro. Part of them, like the 30 to 35% of this, are like really, really hardcore supporters that have disinformation, misinformation, fake news as a main strategy for political campaign. So they are not spreading misinformation because they don't know it's misinformation. They're doing that because they believe blindly and there is no rational argument that's gonna shift that view, or because they know it's a political strategy. So it's very complicated, because it's not just that information solves misinformation. It's more complicated than that.
Yeah. Something that came to my mind watching the debates, the presidential debates. It's so amazing how Bolsonaro can talk, to the camera, to millions of people, and be like, just search on Google. In my government, there has been no other government that has taken more care of the Amazon. There has been less deforestation. He lies like bluntly on people's faces, because he knows people are not going to search. He knows people are not going to go on Google and search for that.
He paid an ad on Google about deforestation and Bolsonaro government to say it was lower than what. It's like, wow. It's even worse.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Yeah, it's amazing how how babies I guess we are when dealing with technology on such a scale and with such low moral barriers. But yeah, I think we're coming to an end. It's been an amazing panel. It's been awesome to get to talk more with Joanna, to meet you, Marek. Amazing, amazing. I think we could keep on going for hours. It's such an important topic to be discussing. But I think we can move on to any final comments that you guys might have, so we can start finishing up. Shall we start with Marek? Do you want to start up?
Gosh, this is like say something important in 20 seconds. I really don't like that moment. I think that was a very good debate, and I think there's plenty of work to do. And it's been a very pleasure for me to be part of this conversation and bringing our content into the audience that you have there. Also, it's been nice to be with Joanna on the panel because, as she said, we collaborate a lot and have a lot of respect for the organization and the work that they've been doing globally, but also in the region in Brazil. And I think we just have to have more of these kind of conversations and reevaluate how we do things, how we, what we do to see again, because we kind of assume that we know what we do, but then 5 years later, we all do different things, but we don't know about it and so on. And we also have our experiences, our own way of learning through, mistakes and through successes of our work and so on. And I think that's very important. And it's kind of refreshing to see that this is not happening across the board. And yeah, and I would say, be hopeful. The world is scary. Technology is horrible, but the world is not going to end tomorrow, and technology is not going to destroy us by, AI robots on Friday. So there's plenty of things that we can do, and let's try to have also, some fun when we're doing that as well.
Awesome, Joanna.
I don't know. I'm hopeful today, and also a bit fearful on such a hard task that we are gonna have in Brazil because of all the division that happened within the population, within families, within friends. It has been a very dystopic moment, I think, for the world, and that went even beyond the dystopic futures we had conceived before. But I think in this moment we could see that part of the Brazilian population and the politicians that historically were opposing themselves got together for a major goal, which was to uphold democracy. And that's something powerful. We could have lost yesterday, and if we did, I don't know if I would be here talking to you, because I would be so devastated. So I think we should celebrate today, but be cautious, and because we won one battle, and there is still a lot to come. But I think it's a moment to celebrate and to thank people in the Nordeste, to recognize all the historical struggle, and now think on how we can empower all the movements that were pushing for this democratic force to win, even by close, but to win, and how we can continue to holding hands and pushing the shift for something that's more solid than maybe what we did before, when in the other democratic governments of PT, because when Bolsonaro arrived, we felt that things were built in sand. So how we can now rebuild things? That's a moment for rebuilding things. How we can do that in a little bit more solid structures. So politics for environmental protection, social justice, protection of indigenous people are upheld more strongly, independently of who gets in power next. So yeah, sorry, I'm like philosophing today about many things, sometimes not related to technology, but I think technology should not even be in the center of the politics of people thinking about technology. The macro vision of it, it's more important. Technologies are still a tool, you know. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure to cooperate with Coda, with Tactical Text. Very nice to see you, Marek. Send best wishes to everyone in there, and thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Yes, it is a day to be hopeful. Let's continue celebrating while we can. I think the only good part of having such a monstrous government is that we have a common enemy, and I at least felt in that the movements I'm part of that we have united a lot, and there's a lot of we've been part of a lot. So yeah, I just really hope that we don't fragment now, on little things, that could divide. Now that hopefully we're gonna have the possibilities, as you said, Joanna, right? The openness to be able to grow again. So yeah, let's be hopeful and continue the work in Brazil and the world. And yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you, Coda, for the invitation. Thank you, Marek. Thank you, Joanna. So yeah, with this, I think we come to an end to our panel in data activism and privacy, preserving rights. And yeah, thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Ciao, ciao.